Hey guys, and welcome to Devlog number 9. So jumping straight into it, I'll show you what I've been working on this week. So firstly, I've added the ability to drop down the platforms now, as I mentioned I was going to add last week. So when you're on a platform and you press the down key, automatically assigned to S, you can drop down the platform now. This works for all the regular platforms, just not the moving ones. To get that to work, I wrote a little script called fall down. This basically works through making sure firstly that you're touching the platform, and then secondly that you're pressing the button to fall down. Because I'm using the platform effector for my one-way platforms, I can use the surface arc angle, set that to 0, which essentially makes it so the player falls through the platform. So when the two conditions are met, it sets that to 0 and then starts a little coroutine to wait before then resetting it back to 125. So another thing I've been working on is this Hinge platform. So this works through when the player stands on it, it rotates down, and then when the player jumps off, it rotates back up. Whilst normally this could probably be achieved through just basic physics within Unity, and it applying weight to the platform, I am controlling it through a script, actually moving it manually when the player's within range of it. This just seemed to work better for my player's movement style. Going along with this, the player also rotates along with the platform, and when you jump off the platform, the player rotates back up to their normal position. So jumping into the Hinge platform script, or as I named it here, trapdoor script. So firstly, this works through detecting if you're colliding with the trapdoor or not, using on collision. So when you enter, it sets the bool hinge call to true, and when you exit, it sets it to false. So that's just detecting if you're currently on it or not, and setting that as a bool. Within both of these, it also sets the player to the child of the hinge to ensure a smoother movement. This is all explained in Devlog number 6 if you want to check that out. So the main part of this code works through firstly checking if the hinge is over or under rotated, and whether you're on or off the hinge. Depending on both of those situations, it rotates the hinge in a different direction. This is also where it checks whether the player is upright or not. So firstly it gets their current rotation, checks if it's within 0.005 or minus 0.005, and depending on if it's above or below that, it rotates them towards that. I had to put the little leeway of 0.005 instead of just rotating them straight to 0, because it kept overshooting and then undershooting, and you'd kind of shake and it would never actually get to 0. But this is such a small tolerance that it looks and everything feels as if they're upright, although if it becomes a problem, I'll fix it so when they're within this tolerance it just sets it straight to 0. I'm also going to move this script to the player movement script, firstly so it only happens once if I have multiple hinges, and secondly this should really be just being controlled within the player movement script and not within a random hinge script, but I'll take care of that later in the week. Another thing I've been working on this week is a button to control the moving platform. So as you can see, that's this little wooden case with the red button, and when you go up to it and press the interact key currently set to F, the moving platform will stop and start depending on the state of the button, and I also added a little animation so the button presses down and comes back up. And this is real basic stuff, it's just a hitbox detecting whether you're close enough to the button and whether you press the key, and when that happens it runs the animation to lower the button and stop the platform, and then vice versa depending on the current state of it. I'll go over this more at the end of the video, but these are more just proof of concepts on how the player can interact within the world, which I can then build into full levels later on. That being said, let's jump into Visual Studio and I'll quickly show you how this works, although it's really simple. So essentially how this works is when you get close enough it sets in range to true, and when you walk away it sets in range to false, and depending on if in range is true and you press the appropriate key, it can deactivate the up down platform mover script and then run the lean tween animation that I'm using to control the button, which moves that down slightly. It also sets active to false, which then makes sure that next time this code's run or you press the button again, it does the opposite. So if the platform's currently moving, it stops it, and if it's currently stopped, it moves it. I also set a couple variables at the start to control how high and low the button goes. Ideally, I want to change this script to make it more universally viable and not just this button. So I'll be able to just pull in a game object and mention the script and it will deactivate or activate different objects depending on that. So I'm going to work on making this more universally viable later in the week. Jumping straight back into Unity, another thing, as I'm sure you've seen already, that I've been working on are these little gems. So they're the start of what I want to use as maybe an alternate scoring system to the time, or I'm not 100% sure what to do with them yet, but the idea is you can collect them throughout the level to get little bonuses. Now you can't currently pick them up yet, but I'm in the process of writing the script to make them actually usable, and I am debating whether to maybe use them to like take time off your timer, or give you like a little boost, or maybe you just have to collect all of them before the level ends. I'm still deciding. So far I just made the actual designs for them, added the light, and then I did a small script to make them float up and down. Super easy, universal to use script that I can add to almost any object within the game and make it hover up and down like these. Another thing I'm also working on in the background is the ability to pick up items. And that's what I think I'm going to also use the gems for, to test that. So when you go up to it and hit the pickup button, it makes it smaller and holds it out in front of your player, and then you can drop it somewhere else and it continues floating where it is. So I'm going to use these to test that, as well as potentially be able to just run into these and pick up certain ones for different bonuses. So another thing I added this week, although it's pretty small, are these little spikes that I added. So when you touch these spikes, you get reset to your latest checkpoint, or having not touched any checkpoints yet at the start of the map. So these just act like a little obstacle to get in the way of the player and make them think about where they're moving, and to have a little bit of a challenge to the map. As with all of my sprites, I designed these in a program called Sprite, which is especially good for pixel art, and I exported these straight as a PNG and pulled them straight into Unity to be used as my spikes. So super basic stuff. Set up a little hitbox around it, and the script shown here is the script that resets you when you touch them, and it's actually the same script for if you fall off the map, just called respawn. Use the exact same thing, just dragged it straight on there. So that was super simple. Actually, the only part of this project that I haven't designed myself is this background. Actually, I pulled that from the internet ages ago, and I'm not sure if it's licensable, so I need to do a little bit of research on that, find out if I'm allowed to be using it commercially, and if not, I need to design my own. So that should be done by Saturday as well. So going forward, a lot of the features added this week can be slightly altered and used to build a massive game out of, essentially, with the different buttons and the moving platforms and picking up different gems. Add that as scoring, along with the spikes for resetting you. So going forward next week, I plan to build out a few levels using a lot of these basic mechanics once the picking up items system is completed. I also want to add a system where you can drop an item in like a little tray and it will activate it, almost like Portal boxes if you play Portal, and almost make a few puzzle levels where you've got to avoid spikes, hit different buttons and get platforms moving in a certain way, and place down certain items in certain locations with the aim of getting to the end of the level. So I'm really looking forward to next week, because I think it's going to be lots of fun actually designing levels and making a actual first playable game that is kind of viable, that should be fun for other people to play as well. Adding these mechanics will really kickstart trying to see how fun the actual game will be to play. With that being said, that just about wraps up this video. As always guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. If you've got any comments on anything I've done, be sure to drop a comment down below, or email me if you want any help with anything. I'm sure to reply to both comments and emails. See you next time.